If you know you're going to be in a fight, hit first. That's often given as advice to kids on the playground, but that's also advice that's normally good when you're dealing with legal matters. Divorce is a legal matter, and what I'm talking about today is the importance of being the one filing in a divorce if you know that a divorce is going to happen. I'm not talking about encouraging somebody to get a divorce. I'm not telling anybody that getting a divorce is a great idea. What I'm talking about today is if you know you're going to be in a divorce, if your spouse has said things to you that indicate the divorce is coming, the divorce is imminent, then what I'm talking about today is the danger of sitting back, the danger of waiting and being the one receiving the papers rather than the one filing the papers. To understand why it's important to file first, you need to understand what you're involved in. A divorce is a lawsuit, and because it's a lawsuit, rules give advantages to the person filing the case. In a normal case, you're talking about a plaintiff and a defendant. In a divorce, you're talking about a petitioner and respondent. And so just like the plaintiff gets advantages because they file first, the petitioner can get advantages in a divorce case. The plaintiff gets those advantages because the plaintiff, in a normal case, a car wreck case, a breach of contract, the plaintiff has the burden of proof. But when you're going through a divorce, both sides have burdens of proof. So both sides equally have an obligation, but the one that files first gets a huge advantage. So what is that advantage? Well, it's the advantage of getting to talk first. If you end up in a jury trial, then the petitioner gets to talk to the jury first. They get to have their portion of the jury selection first. They get to have their opening statement first. They get to put on what they call their case in chief first, and they get to put on their rebuttal case after the respondent puts on their case in chief. Most of the time, if you go to trial, it's going to be with just the judge, what they call a bench trial. In that case, you still have the advantage if you're the petitioner because you get to put on your case before the other side gets to call a single witness. You get to put on your case in chief, then they put on their case, and then you get to put on your rebuttal case. So think about that advantage. Think about the advantage that you had when you were the little kid if you got to mom and dad first. If you got to go in and tell your side of the story before the other side gets to tell their side of the story, it can be a huge advantage. You get to set the stage. You get to set the parameters. You get to have the first impression. And like we talked about, because the rules of procedure give it to you, you can have that first impression and you can have the last impression. So it's a huge advantage. Again, it makes sense that those advantages go to somebody if they're the one that has the burden of proof. But when both sides have that burden of proof, then it really helps to be the one that has that advantage. So you may be one of the many people that are out there that think to themselves, well, but I know my case isn't going to go to trial. I know my case is going to be uncontested. I know we're just going to settle. We're just going to resolve this without going to trial. Many, many people do. But settlement negotiations happen in the shadow of trial. The advantages that you have in a case influence the settlement that you can bring about in your case. The more advantages you have in your case, the stronger your advantages are when you're negotiating. You should be able to get a better settlement in the case if that's what you're thinking is going to happen. And those are the only two choices. You're either going to settle or you're going to trial. So if the two of you are not going to be able to agree, then you're going to go to trial even if you don't want one. If the two of you cannot agree and sign an agreed decree, meaning you agree on all the terms, even if you don't like all of them, then you're going to go to trial because that's the only way to get the case done. And so again, if you are in trial, those advantages really matter. But one thing to remember is this: at the outset of a case, you don't have any way of knowing for certain whether your case is going to end up in trial. You don't know what the other person's going to do for sure. You don't know what their lawyer's going to do, and you don't know what the judge is going to do. There are a lot of uncertainties, even if you think you can predict the future. So if you know that the case is going to happen anyway, you may as well be the one that files the case. if the case is going to happen anyway, somebody's going to have to file it, and it may as well be you, because at least that way you have some control over how the case starts, and it gives you advantages with respect to control on how the case finishes.